you're building a business or you've recently stepped into leadership and you feel like things are starting to get messy, this episode is going to hit home. Because here's the truth most people don't talk about. Growth doesn't break because of a lack of effort. It breaks because of a lack of focus and a lack of clarity. You build something that works, but now you're trying to sell it to everyone. You get promoted because you're great at your job, but now you're responsible for people, and no one ever taught you how to lead. So you end up stuck in this in-between phase where the old way of doing things no longer works, but the new way hasn't fully clicked yet. And that's exactly where today's guest, John Mason, comes in. John works with founders who have a product but don't know how to take it to market, and with high performers who suddenly find themselves leading teams without a playbook. In this conversation, we break down what actually creates clarity in a business, why most people struggle when they move into leadership, and how to stop being the bottleneck in your own growth. We also get into the real role of AI in sales and business and why it's not going to replace what actually drives results. If you've ever felt overwhelmed trying to scale, whether it's your revenue, team, or yourself, this episode will give you a much clearer path forward. So let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the Financial Freedom Podcast, where we showcase business owners and entrepreneurs. And today we have John Mason, founder and chief revenue officer of People and Pipeline Consulting. He's had sales leadership positions, business development. Really happy to have him on. John, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Pleasure to be here.
Briefly introduce yourself and what you do in your current role.
I'm founder and chief revenue officer at People and Pipeline Consulting, a business I set up going solo on my own. I hold chief revenue officer positions on a fractional basis for startup companies, helping them with their pipeline, eventually helping them with their people. I provide sales, training, and leadership to new managers, whether that's through my own company or through a company that I'm affiliated with called My Sales Coach. 12 years experience in business development. Throughout my life, I've built my own business. This is the real deal.
What is your customer or client avatar that you help?
On the revenue side of things, startups tend to be typically two people. One of those might be the product person and one of them might be this operational business person. If that operational business person doesn't have the natural born sales acumen, the natural born charisma to put themselves out there and take the product to market, then they can struggle. That's where I come in to help. Third person, you've got the person developing the product in SaaS, the person operationally running the company, and myself putting those ideas together to take them to market. I currently do that for two companies, Pilot Financial Systems in the UK, CRM for financial advisors, and ZQL, a data federation company, which is going to be global worldwide. We have staff already in the UK and Europe, taking them forward. The other half of my business is the people side. My typical avatar would be myself back in 2022. When I became the head of business development, I was an accidental manager. I was given the role because I was good. I had people skills. It was a case of, can you make those guys as good as you are and get us to our number? Off you go. Those that are new to management roles, coming into leadership because they were good individual contributors, now find themselves in charge of others. That's where I can help them figure out what they got to do.
What are the top questions, problems, pain points, or frustrations that clients are coming to you with?
On the setting up company side of things, being able to focus in on your niche. A lot of people create something new that can solve many problems. If you try and take them all to market at the same time, you can run into trouble. But if you focus down on who you're helping, focus on your ICP, you're able to take that product to market. Where do we start? Who do we target? Helping businesses identify their why, which translates into the people side of things. Why am I a manager? What kind of manager do I want to be? Where do I start? I've got to deal with things that are outstanding from the previous manager, things that are being brought to my attention now, and things that are going to be planning for the future. How do I put those fires out? Where do I start? The main question that translates on both sides. Of course, they're two different avenues.
How are you viewing artificial intelligence? How are you using it to stay abreast, keep ahead, and help solve clients' problems?
Yeah, AI. Where to begin? AI has a place in business, it has a place in training and sales as well. I think it can help the automation side of things. The fact we call it artificial intelligence is too forward thinking. A lot of people are using the automation side of it to do heavy lifting, so the human input can be added and accelerated later. It's the next digital wave. We had computers, tablets, mobile phones. Go back further, we had the World Wide Web, Microsoft Excel being the next big thing over the last 40 years. AI is the next thing on that. If we think it's going to solve all of our problems, we're going to fail. If we learn to use it, embrace, and leverage it to our advantage, we'll succeed. It can help you digest data, come up with ideas. You have to put the guardrails on. It's like when Wikipedia came out, that was an open sourced encyclopedia, but you needed moderators. You need moderators in your own use of AI. You need to put the guardrails on to make sure it's being used correctly. Where do I think it won't have success is replacing frontline salespeople, SDRs, sales development representatives, people on the phones. That's not going to cut it. I've received a few phone calls on the business to customer side as a potential customer from these AI agents. They make really good content for LinkedIn. They do not make really good AI agents. I think those that learn to embrace it, to assist with what they're doing, to help catapult themselves forward will do well. Those that think it's going to do their job for them, not going to do well. Those that ignore it and come late to the party will fall behind and have to catch up.
Being a chief revenue officer, being in sales and leadership, how have those two roles helped with you solving current problems? What are the problems that require both the skills from a chief revenue officer and the skills of a sales and leadership coach?
It's important to understand it comes down to people. Whether you're dealing with a company of 3 or 150 people, you have to have those interpersonal skills that help you navigate through those conversations. The further you go up the career ladder in a business, the more exposure you get to other aspects of the business. As a chief revenue officer, I'm going to get exposure to the other C-suites in the company and what's important to them on a daily basis. What's important to me isn't necessarily important to them, but we've got to pull together to collectively move forward with the business's desire and purpose. Understanding how things in my world affect things in operations, product, finance, so we can stay on the same page and move forward. If you're used to leading people as a head of business development and you move into a CRO position, then you've got some of those skill sets to make sure that you all in the table move forward together. It's the same with sales training. You can't lead a horse to water, as an adage, of course. When you're trying to train somebody, try to get them from A to B, meet them on their terms, find out what their goals is and help deliver it. Going through that position of going from frontline worker manager to being in charge of departments, they're skills that help you build up the ability to navigate future situations and help the company solve its problems. How do we as a business get from A to B? I have the ability to chip in with an idea on finance, product, operations. Having that exposure to the wider company helps solve those problems. Any good head of department, chief officer is good to have.
Quick pause here. If this episode is making you rethink how your income is structured, that's intentional. Information doesn't create freedom, structure does. At the end of this episode, I'm going to show you how to diagnose whether you're building leverage or just scaling complexity. Let's get back into it. Continuing the conversation, what I found interesting was former team leader, you got promoted on the merit of selling and people skills. You said not your desires to manage. How is management and leadership different from your perspective?
It's something I've spoken to quite a lot recently. It's what really helped me decide this is the direction I should take people in pipeline consulting. Foremost, it's not a bad thing that my previous company promoted me the way they did. It's the way that a lot of companies promote people in industries and roles. It's not unique to me in sales. It's everywhere. It happens in the NHS all the time in the UK. I thought my career trajectory was to go from sales to senior consultant to enterprise development director. Lone wolf roles, look after myself, maybe do buddying and mentoring. Ultimately, I'm responsible for my target. The opportunity of leadership came about. I kept my feet in both camps. I've been doing the work necessary to continue as a lone wolf. I've been laying foundations without realizing to be a good leader and not just manage people. When I was promoted, I was very lucky that the person that promoted me, the CRO at the time and the CEO of the company, believed in putting the right people in the right posts. They must have seen something in me that I hadn't yet realized. And it very quickly became similar to having children. If you're single, you're responsible for yourself. And if you have children, you're now responsible for others. The development of those others also make your life better. The development of my sales team means they bring in more money. I'm compensated on the team success. It's no longer about me, myself, and I. It's about we, putting others before yourself. One of the biggest things that salespeople going into leadership need to be able to get their head around is I have to put other people before myself now, because in the short term, I may not make bonus this quarter, but in the long term, I'll make a lot more bonuses by investing in my people. I treated it like my own business.
You were talking about how you believe the best managers aren't the loudest or people pleasers. They're the ones empowered to lead with intention. My question for you is middle management a thing of the past, given that artificial intelligence is eliminating excess? Why would you need managers if you have algorithms, software, or artificial intelligence?
I think it's a good question. Organizations all over the world, UK, US, Europe, APAC, Africa, you're going to find that situation where you end up with first, second, third level managers. Where that has its true benefit is there's only so much capacity a salesperson has to manage other people. If I'm going to conduct really effective one-to-ones with my team, there are only so many people I can manage because I have to do the day job. I might be selling as well. If you're going to invest time in running through individual pipelines and time running through individuals' aspirations and careers and individual coaching, all of a sudden you could be spending 20-30% of your week on those things, let alone group huddles, your one-to-one with your boss, your forecast meetings, things that you always get pulled into. I think middle management is great when people aren't promoted to manager just because they want more responsibility and it's a pay rise and it's to tick a box. And it's good when it's a case of you're managing 9 people, you're drowning. Let me promote people under you to take responsibility so they can manage 2 each and you can manage 3. So you'd have 2 people managed by 1, 2 by a second, 2 by a third. There are your 9 direct reports. You've now only got 3 people to manage. They've got 2 each. That's where middle management will help, even with AI. If you start stripping out people because cost-saving exercises or because of AI being great, you can definitely make mistakes. A lot of businesses have big layoffs that have to go back and hire more people. It happens frequently. If you're a small business, not an Amazon, that can be detrimental. I think middle managers are important if you focus on how much of their time they can give each of the people they manage in a week, a month.
There was a really interesting film at South by Southwest recently where the corporation got rid of all of the middle managers except one. That one person was overseeing a fleet of robots, software, and artificial intelligence. Really fascinating.
One thing I wanted to add, you mentioned the middle management question. I didn't realize the person you were thinking of from that film or documentary was everyone was gone except him, and he was managing a fleet of autonomous robots. I can imagine the type of companies that would be for. What happens if that person's ill? You know, there's a bottleneck there, right? If they get hit by a bus tomorrow, who's going to train them to do his job or her job? That happens a lot in business. We strip things back so much that we become dependent on certain people and they become a bottleneck, a single point of failure. Any business out there, whether you're growing or cutting, make sure you don't create bottlenecks and single points of failure, because if you leave and people don't know how to do their job afterwards, you were the single point of failure.
What are the essential mindsets, skills, traits for accidental managers that become leaders?
I think they are the traits they would look to hire people with. They are willing to be coached, willing to listen. The ability to wear multiple hats probably got them into the position in the first place. They're good at doing more than one thing. You have a new set of hats to wear when you're a manager. The way to make it more purposeful and less accidental is to be able to have conversations with your team. You may be managing people that you were friends or you never got on with. Now you have to find a new level of ground where you can trust me. I will go and bat for you. I have your best interests at heart. If there is something coming down from the top table, I will put my shield up and weather that storm for you. I will pass on a more constructive message rather than beating down. If you have things you want to pass up, we can talk about them so that we make sure if we put our head above the parapet, we're doing it for a legitimate reason. Being able to say, let me take off my I'm your boss hat. Let me put on I'm a person with empathy hat. I'm a human being hat. What's going on in your world? I've had it before where someone comes to me and said, I need to leave. I'm very stressed out. I was like, okay, leaving's not going to make you any less stressed because you'll have no job. You've been here a long time. You're allowed to take time off for mental health, for being unwell. That's not a problem. You're allowed to do that. Then if you take that time off and reflect while still being paid, you can decide whether or not, is it the job or is it the company? If it's the job, you can change teams. If you don't like being in sales, go to customer success, go to marketing, go to product. If it's the company, it doesn't matter which team you go in, you're going to be unhappy. I've been there in the past and had to decide whether I want to leave a company for what reasons. If you're really good at your job, people may try to keep you. Once in my career was offered anything to stay. I realized nothing they could offer me wanted me to stay. My mind was made up. I'd fell out of love with the company outside of our office. Our office was fine. Moving me to a different team in the office would have been better. A different manager may have helped one or two little things, but the big overarching thing was actually outside our physical location. I didn't want to go back for this massive corporation anymore. I wanted to go back for my manager and our office, our regional hub, but I didn't want to go back for the big bad giant. I didn't have faith that they could deliver the things I promised our customers and had to move on. Being able to swap those hats and understand what's in the best interest of this person, this human, and the company. You have a fiduciary responsibility as a manager to the company. Somewhere on that list, towards the bottom, is what's best for you. None of those things are best for you. If someone goes off sick, you've got to cover their work. If someone leaves, you've got to find their replacement. None of these outcomes are going to help me. What's best for you and what's best for this company so we can move forward. And I would have to pick up the mess. So take that ability to wear multiple hats and suddenly apply it to, this is what the company message is, but let's dive into you. Let's get off the surface level and then dive into it. Because in sales, we ask questions to do discoveries, to probe beyond the surface level. I don't have any money, no budget. If you find a problem big enough that needs fixing, you find budget. So you start diving into those layers, take those sales skills you have, those multiple hat wearing skills, and you'll go from accidental manager to a purposeful one very quickly.
Last question is, what do you mean by if Carlsberg did podcast guests?
Carlsberg is a Danish beer, popular in the UK. It's lower strength, below 4% alcohol. Not necessarily the most popular. One of their advertising campaigns were, if Carlsberg did this thing, it would end up being the greatest thing in the world. So if Carlsberg did cars, I'm a BMW driver, for example. You know, for those in the UK that have seen that campaign, they get that in joke, if you will. It's a really clever piece of marketing, similar to the Guinness campaign in the 90s, which was good things come to those who wait. A lovely campaign, horses running across a beach with waves. It was in black and white because Guinness is black and cream. The whole point is Guinness takes longer to pour. Therefore, it's worth the wait. They've turned the negative into a positive through reframing, which any marketeer would think is genius. I'm a big fan when marketing campaigns go well. I think that's important in a CRO. I have to look after customers, people. I have to look after marketing. I have to look after sales. So if Carlsberg did podcast guests, apparently it would be me, according to me.
How can people connect with you?
Find me on LinkedIn, John Mason. Feel free to add me. I'm more than happy to add anyone that wants to see my content or me to see theirs or join for the spirit of debate. More than happy for that.
What a fantastic way to end the conversation. Thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Likewise, brilliant. Pleasure. I've really enjoyed your questions. Thank you very much for your time, Chris.
Let's zoom out. If you're a physician, founder, or high-income professional, and you feel like you're working harder every year, but not structurally freer, you're not alone. The mistake isn't effort, it's architecture. This show exists to help you convert expertise into scalable leverage, faster and with fewer expensive missteps. Here's the diagnostic I mentioned before. If your income requires your constant presence, if your capital isn't compounding outside your profession, if your highest value talent is doing low value tasks, you don't have a growth problem, you have a leverage design problem. And if you want to fix it with clarity instead of guesswork, I offer a limited number of one-on-one leverage strategy sessions each month. We audit your income model, capital deployment, authority positioning, and structural bottlenecks, and design your highest return move. If you're serious about compressing years into months, the link to apply is below.